Empowered Health, a podcast shedding light on how healing is an inside job. Keys to your inner power and total transformation. Discussing wholeness, wellness, and the effects of the mind on the physical and energetic parts of our being. A podcast to support you, moving from fear and pain into wellness and purpose. Belief, hope, connection, energetic keystones for transformation and inner power. Sacred knowledge that inspires us to look within, to find our own unique path. Empowered Health, release and rewire to become what you truly are, strong, whole, and empowered.
Welcome to the Empowered Mind podcast, the keys to empowered health and heart-aligned living. Today's guest is Danielle Brooks, sacred sound healer and author of the book, Living Through the Heart. Danielle states that pain and suffering are intrinsic parts of life. Whether it is physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual, pain is unavoidable. To live fully is to experience both joy and pain. Embracing these experiences as equally meaningful and essential offers liberation. This process is first and foremost one of moving into a heart-based way of living. Welcome, Danielle.
Hi, Jane. Thank you so much for having me.
Honey, you have such an amazing story. You moved from heartbreak to a cancer diagnosis.
To heartbreak.
To heartbreak.
To heartbreak.
Right? Into healing, into 9/11, into this amazing book. And, you have such a wonderful sense of humor. Just tell us how, give us a little background and how it all began.
Oh my goodness. Well, listen, one thing's for certain. When we're not crying over the pain and the difficulties of life, we have to be laughing because, good Lord, if there's one guarantee in life, it's that there will be pain and that too shall change. Everything changes, right? So when we talk about living through the heart and this particular book, I had no idea that I was going to write this book. In fact, what I do know is that I'm at my best when I don't have a clue what I'm doing. So as you know, and as I think some of the listeners have already heard, I went through an incredible series of explosions where my life imploded and left me ultimately with a very aggressive cancer diagnosis and at ground zero for 9/11. So in every way, my life, my body, my world had completely exploded. And in this desire to put myself back together or find a way to actually get out of bed, to feel like I could continue to live, I started exploring everything and absolutely anything that would help me. I wasn't so focused on healing the cancer as much as getting to the root of how what had seemed to be a very open, happy life had exploded so quickly on so many ways. I wanted to get to the start, to the beginning. And I also made a choice that worked for me. And that was right for me, and that was to follow a path of healing and wellness that was all self and naturally based. So I didn't do any of the treatments that most people would assume that one would do with stage 4 cancer. And that's not to say that that isn't the way for others, but it didn't speak to me. So I chose Instead of allopathic medicine, I chose a holistic route. And in doing that, I went all around the world. I went to every place that spoke to me. I went to the middle of the jungles. I went to high Sierras in Brazil. I went to the insides of sacred caves in the Philippines. I went everywhere seeking help when it spoke to my heart, trusting that everything served me, trusting that everything helped. Now, that's a big part. Because there were some things that I did which I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that again. So it served. I saw it as all serving me. Whether I continued to do it or whether I didn't, I thought of it all as a rung on the ladder. And along the way, I met other people who were seeking, people like me, people who were living with incredible pain, both physical, emotional, and mental. I met people that had, been given a 6% chance of surviving their cancer. I met people that were with full-blown AIDS. I met people who were paralyzed. I met people that had gone blind. You name it. And devastation, unbelievable devastation. And I found that along the way, I wanted to hear their stories. How had they gotten to where they were at? And because I had a background in radio, I always enjoy listening to stories and hearing stories. And so I would sit with people and I would put the recorder on. And it wasn't an interview. I just want to say this right now. I thought of this as my sharing project because I wanted to be able to capture and share and come from a place with each of these people, which was compassionate and attentive. And so I would ask people, that I would meet at these healing centers or in remote places, would they be willing to share their story with me? And because they're fellow travelers, and if there's anything I've learned, it's that the wisdom is in the people all around us, Like we're walking our own unique path, but each person can bring to you a gift of wisdom, of teaching, of strength. And so I look to my peers who also were, living through their hearts and seeking the way to the center of their truth. And I would ask them if they would be willing to share. So I would sit with them. Sometimes these conversations would be short. 3 hours was probably the shortest. The longest one was 3 days. And that was amazing. They were all amazing. But I would sit down with them and I would start by telling my story. Because there's nothing like going through your own shame and your own embarrassment or your shyness of saying, this is how I screwed up. This is what a mess my life is looking like right now. This is how lost, how confused I feel. This is where I'm at. And that kind of opened the space for other people to say, oh, okay, I'll share with you.
Right?
I'll share with you.
Yeah, just being vulnerable and saying, hey, my life has been rough at times too.
Yeah, because the truth is there was, for me, a lot of shame and judgment towards myself for having made choices that had got me into unhealthy marriages, only one unhealthy marriage. Haven't done that one again, but you know what I mean. The choices that we make that we go, oh, it just went left at Albuquerque.
Right.
So being vulnerable with people allowed them the space to meet me and to meet their own vulnerability. So there was compassion and there was presence, and we would sit together. It was never an interview. It was always a connecting and a sharing. And the most amazing thing is that there was always a moment when it was like an aha moment through being with another person, being with my own pain, and them being with their own pain, and being in a place where we could be authentic and vulnerable. We would get these aha moments, this guidance, this clarity. It was beautiful. It
Mm-hmm.
was very transformative. And I love doing this. It helped me in my own inner process, in my own inner journey. And I never had a plan for what I would do with these recordings. I never had an idea of what it would become. But in total, I did 92 of these over 8 years. And they birthed themselves. And the first part of the birthing was not just my own transformation and the opportunity for others to connect to their hearts and to be heard.
Yeah.
These sharings were a way for people to be heard, for me to hear others, and for them to hear themselves. And that's powerful. And many years after, I no longer felt drawn to doing these anymore. It was like a compulsion for 8 years. And then suddenly, out of the blue, I met an incredible man who had created a university. It was a seminary that he was creating into a university. And he received guidance, meditating, that I needed to do my doctorate on the project. So how does one say no to that?
Right.
And
So
that's how the book came. Yeah.
wow. See, it's such a story of how you're just doing what feels right. You don't even know what the next step is, but
Exactly.
trusting. And then,
Yeah.
wow, that's
Yeah.
incredible.
Because, and that's what living through the heart is all about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I even find with patients that if, now that I've become aware of it, that each patient has something to tell me. And you really, I'm the same thing you're saying, that you get people to reveal their true pain by being vulnerable yourself, because we've all been in pain, and then this information comes.
Yeah. And the wonderful thing about that is it's about meeting yourself where you're at and meeting other people where they're at. There's no expectation. There's no assumption. There's presence. There's being with another, being with yourself in a way that you feel safe. That's what the sharing project gave me. And it was amazing because, like you say, each time I learned. Sometimes I learned through what people were saying, and other times I learned through what they weren't saying. And that was awesome. You know, I met a man once. He's part of this, and his name's Johnny Franken, and he's passed away now, and he's Canadian. Absolutely amazing. He lived through World War II, and he was interned in a Japanese prisoner of war camp. And Johnny's story is unbelievable. Everybody's stories that I met were unbelievable. They were all phenomenal. But Johnny, just to sum it up briefly, was a young man when he was captured and interred, and he volunteered in the prisoner of war camp to work in a mine. And all the older men that he lived with, there were 90 of them in his bunk. They said, you know, don't do that. If you work in the mine, you won't last a month. You'll die. But what they were offering him, they said, if you volunteer, his captors, the Japanese military was saying, if you volunteer to work, you'll get 1 shower a week. And that for Johnny was just something incredible. So he agreed. And sure enough, it hadn't even been a month, and he knew. He said, there's no way I'm going to live through this. It's just too difficult, the physical pressures and not having enough food. Anyway, he was down in the mine on the day that the Nagasaki bomb was dropped, and he lived in Nagasaki. That's where the internment camp was. So when he came up from the mine, everyone was dead.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he tells this story. He tells he told so many stories. And I kept asking him, I'm like, Johnny, how do you forgive? I was so obsessed in my own life with forgiveness and letting go of the ways that I had felt wounded and hurt, and justified in my anger. And here was a man who never answered that question. Every time I asked him, how do you forgive? He would change, and he would start to tell me a story of kindness, a simple kindness. He would tell me about one guard who was kinder. He would tell me about one person that helped him. And I started to realize that his not answering that question was in itself an answer. His ability to never forget what he had lived through, but to also hold compassion for everyone and everything, was in itself a profound learning.
And it
We
was,
learn.
yeah, and it
Yeah.
was where he was putting his focus.
Exactly. And he went on until he passed away at 92 years old. CBC in Canada did a documentary about him. He dedicated his life to talking to young people, to talk about what he had gone through, what his wife had gone through, what his family had gone through. And it wasn't to shame, but it was to know that this is the depths to which we as humanity can go, and that in any given moment we have a choice. And his willingness and commitment to keep education and awareness alive of what had been, and also to show up the way that he did with incredible light and compassion. He was an inspiration. He was incredibly inspiring.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Danielle, in this book, you talk about several key things that you became aware of, and you gave quotes from different people in the book, which I found wonderful. But there were different learnings that came forward, like willingness, awareness, acceptance, self-responsibility, empowerment, gratitude, and love. And I feel like there were so many things that were important to bring forward. Like each of those were equally important.
Yeah. What I noticed during the course of my own healing process and doing this project, I started to notice that there were fundamental cornerstones to transforming pain. And you just named every one of them. And they came up again and again and again. And I started to realize how they lead from one into the next. And it's a spiral. You might have a place of willingness in one part of your life, but not in another part of your life. But every single person that I met taught me how they were learning one of these components, how they moved seamlessly through their life, and that they are building blocks to how we heal. Being my definition of healing is becoming more whole, more accepting, more in our heart, creating a life which is engaged and responsive rather than reactive, creating a way of living that is more open and truer. And so when I did write this book, I wrote it as an homage to my teachers, my teachings that life had given me, and that life was giving everyday people like you and I and the people that are listening to this, because each one of us is becoming richer and richer in our lives with wisdom, with knowingness, and we support one another, we support one another by learning together.
Yeah. And to realizing that information doesn't necessarily come from an expert or the government. It comes from this path that if you listen to the inside of your, your own knowingness, these clues and these people come that bring you the information.
Yeah.
And that's what's important, living, like you say, through your heart.
It's a living experience. Wisdom comes from living.
Yeah.
And taking that which you have learned and integrating it and using it as a foundation to grow, to expand, to become more of who you are. I always look to those that have life experience, and in that way honoring our elders and honoring our youth, because they come in with that as well, right?
Yeah.
Honoring the variations that we have in our communities, the diversity of our communities. It's a wealth of wisdom. So I look to I look to the community around me, and by that I'm not just talking about people. I look to our community of nature, the natural world. I look to animals. They teach us so much. If you want to learn about compassion and love, spend time with a beloved animal, family animal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So it's a different way of living and engaging with life, the life that's around you and your own life. So in doing that, Jane, there's a big part of that which is letting go of our own judgment and criticism for the life that we've lived. It really doesn't matter. What matters is how you move forward now. What inspires you? What excites you? What is being birthed through you?
Yeah. I love your comment too. I picked a few quotes of yours, and one is about paradox and the importance of paradox. And you said, I needed to die before I could wake up.
Yeah, absolutely. Because in that dying, it's a slow lingering death, right? But what has to die? For each one of us, it's a different thing. But I know that for myself, what had to die was my limited perception of myself. What had to die was my obsession with doing, that I would be more lovable, that I would be valued, that I would be seen, that I would be loved if I acted and did certain things, that I made love dependent on an action. I needed to let that die. I needed to let my obsession with trying to dictate my life and direct my life die. I had to learn how to come into a dance with life and to be receptive and to let my soul guide me rather than trying to constantly direct myself based on what I thought others wanted or what I should, could, and needed to do or be. That all had to die. That
Right.
wasn't an easy death.
And we do that out of fear. Like we feel if we control the future, then we're going to be okay. But it has the opposite effect.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And cancer was an amazing teacher.
How so? Yeah.
Because cancer showed me how how everything is energy. And it showed me how to go in, and it showed me how to start to look within myself for how I had created my life. Cancer showed me how to take my power back. Cancer showed me how to stop blaming and being a victim. It showed me how I could change my past and my future based on how I meet my present. Cancer broke me wide open. It brought me to my knees. It brought me near death. But in the doing so, it destroyed my old life. And much as I did grieve parts of that, it opened me up to empathy. It opened me up to compassion for myself, for others. It showed me what forgiveness is. It showed me how I was much stronger than I realized. It showed me how to look inside and to connect with my own heart's wisdom rather than trying to fulfill an identity or a role or looking outside myself for answers. It was and is a profound teacher.
Yeah, and sometimes the greatest teachers are when we have no choice.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, live or die.
There's the power of paradox right there.
Right? Wow.
Yeah, there's incredible love in pain. And you might go, what did she just say there? But the reason that I quote a lot of people is because I would sit with someone who had been through unimaginable pain, and they would say something like that to me, that in the deepest, darkest places I found love. I sat with a woman who, because of the incredible trauma she had gone through, she drew from that and was and until she died, created a home, a hospice for single mothers and that are abused, that are illegal immigrants. She dedicated her life to helping those that had not that that sorry, she dedicated herself to helping those in a way that she had so wanted to be helped in her own life. She carried it forward, you know?
Mm-hmm.
She built love. She built love out of a house of pain. And I think, wow,
Yeah.
it's like it's a pain, and pain is intrinsic. It is part of our life. But what you do with it is your choice. If you remain powerless, it will become a great suffering. But if you learn how to channel the energy of it and to access your own innate power, you can create profound light. It is born, so much light is born from a place of darkness and pain.
Yeah, and this is one of the keystones that you talk about empowerment and how it is, attitude and the way you look at things. And it's Ariel from the UK who says, don't pay attention to any prognosis ever. Do not give your power to someone else.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. There are so many people that I could quote from my own personal experience that I met that will tell you that they are not their prognosis, right? That's not who they are.
Mm-hmm.
They're not a statistic. So if you buy into the belief that you're a statistic, then you give your power to that. But if you choose to see yourself as not a statistic, you are not your disease. You're living with it. And it's huge and it's overwhelming and it's difficult and it is beyond hard. But I will tell you this, you are much more powerful than you realize. And you are not what makes you sick, physically, emotionally, or mentally. So that's step number one.
Mm-hmm.
Responsibility is your ability to respond, and that creates power.
Yeah, and responsibility is the second or one of the keystones.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand this need to find the root cause of disease. We will all need to find it to heal, but the healing process is really about coming into acceptance and love.
One of my favorite quotes in the book is from a woman, her name's Celia, and she says at one point she's a unique individual. When I first met her, I think we met several times over an 8-year period, and she had full-blown AIDS, and it's a mystery as well for her and her doctors and her husband how she got this diagnosis, but she had full-blown AIDS. And she had been, when I met her, 12 years off of the meds. She was addressing it from a phenomenally intricate, holistic, and self-healing perspective. And she said to me, AIDS made me. Before I had AIDS, I was blaming everybody. And I thought, wow, sitting in the presence of someone like this who every day is a struggle. Not sure, there's no medical direction for someone who is choosing not to do those drugs, who is choosing a natural, holistic, looking at their diet, looking at their supplements, looking at cleaning up their thoughts, looking at doing all of this. There's no guideline. I'm sitting in the presence of incredible wisdom and power. That is one powerful person, And when they can say to me that because of this, which they live with, which is constant physical pain and rejection from society, you want to be treated like a leper. Good Lord. It's horrible the way that she would be judged by others and feared. And yet she was saying something to me which was so profound, because she was really in her power, because she started to realize that it mattered not where it came from or how she got it. What mattered was what she did with it now. That's her ability to respond, her responsibility. And by taking charge of her life, making the choices that she was making, to follow certain protocols, to keep coming back in and listening to the guidance of her heart, to working with people that were supportive of her, that were positive. In this way, she was building her own sense of self. She was powerful, and she still is. Yeah.
Yeah. And did she heal her AIDS, or does it matter?
She still, when I last spoke to her, it's been a couple of years, she is alive. She's well. She is still all natural in her process. And she lives with it. But she's an anomaly. She doesn't fit the statistics because she never saw herself as a statistic.
Right.
I have a very dear friend who got scleroderma, and they gave her initially on the outset, I think it was something like 3 years, and she lived for 19 more years. She was the first person to convince the medical board in Quebec to have a lung transplant. Because when you have what they call a terminal disease, they're not going to give you a pair of lungs. It's such a valuable and such an intense transplant. She was incredibly inspiring. She passed away 3 months ago. 19 years.
Yeah.
To me, she did not just heal. She came into this. She healed us all.
Yeah. Beautiful. And even everything you're saying there's so much complexity to it, but I was just thinking about how even cancer, if we just take that for a second, and that was what your body
Manifested.
created.
Yep.
Yeah.
Uterine cancer. Yeah.
So cancer is like from a homeopathic point of view is wanting to control the outcome. So you always want to be in control. And then it's about the body, like there's a growth that doesn't necessarily care about its host. It's going to take over and, live on its own terms and basically eats the host. And the host can't differentiate between self and not self. Did you move through any of those things? I'm just curious.
As you say this, and I love the homeopathic perspective here, because to me, that definition of cancer seems an awful lot like humanity right now, doesn't it?
Right? Yeah.
Humanity in the sense of feeling that we are separate and different from the rest of what is natural on this earth. And that our relationship with all of our brothers and sisters of fur, feather, fin, and wing, and the trees, all of it, we seek to control, we seek to dominate, and we are not in harmony. We are devouring our host, Mother Earth. And so your question to me is, that really is poignant to me, because I feel like cancer for me, and in this way of looking at it as a definition, is a very telling one about how out of harmony we become, and how the journey is one of coming back into harmony, coming back into equilibrium, coming back into reciprocity, coming back into appreciation and gratitude for all that we are, all that we've lived, all that is living.
Mm-hmm.
It's fundamentally a different way of living. It is through the heart.
And I think that's where humanity could move as we awaken, and this.
Well, we've brought ourselves to our knees.
Yeah.
We really have. And perhaps in that way, the way that I brought myself without realizing it to my knees, because my life could not be sustained the way that I was going. Not that I had a bad life, but this opportunity to learn that cancer gave me and to shift my perspective. I wouldn't do this work now. I wouldn't be given the incredible gift of grace to be with others much more caring way. If it hadn't been for that journey. There is a gift in this. So yes, I think right now, look where we're at. Look at all of our unconscious behavior. And it's not to blame, and it's not to shame, and it's not to point fingers, but it's like, it's time. It is time to bring blessing back in, to bring grace back in, to bring tolerance, to bring respect back in.
Right. And, when this all broke out, that's what can, like you say, is the catalyst to change. Because what I felt at that when it began was more control, more fear, more don't listen to your own heart, more listen to something outside of yourself. And I just wanted to change that perspective so badly. And so the information you're bringing forward is just perfect.
When 2020 began, I had a different relationship with what was going on. I had friends in China and Japan who were talking about this, who were saying this is coming. And with all that I have learned and known over these past 20 years of dedicating myself 24/7 to my own inner growth and to healing and to wholeness, I felt a combination of overwhelm and gratitude that I had gone through and had tools that I had honed and developed within myself to help me move through the eye of the, to learn how to center myself in my heart, to not walk in blind, because we were not blind. You know, if you have had your eyes open, there is no surprise. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's more this ability to be able to meet the moment and to draw on our tools, to draw on our community, to draw on our own expansive heart. This is a time to go in and to really make some very conscious decisions and choices about what we want to carry forward.
Mm-hmm.
And what matters, what really matters. And if we bring it back to the story of cancer, it's the exact same thing. Because cancer is a ticking time bomb, especially when you have been told you have stage 4 or you've been given a percentage. You can't unhear that. No matter how strong you are, it lingers. So it's a ticking time bomb. And you have to make some really clear decisions, and that's very hard to do. So it's like you need to clear the decks and you got to strip everything back. And you have to look at how you can unburden yourself so that you can breathe, so that you learn how to draw in to the expanse and the stillness in your heart, and to connect with this infinite wisdom that resides inside, and make choices that honor you and support you. Cancer is not the issue. COVID, in its own essence, is not the issue. We need to look at the root core. We need to bring back harmony. We need to bring back balance. We need to bring back a sense of equilibrium with what is natural, with what is true. We're so obsessed with normal. Let's look to what is natural. Harmony,
Mm-hmm.
connection.
And when you find that within yourself, you can then see it everywhere, you know?
Yes. Well, then when you find it inside yourself, then the art is in connecting to that, strengthening that, learning each step of the way how to live that, and allow yourself to be vulnerable in sharing, in being that.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, nothing is outside of us. Everything is inside us. We shift our inner reality. We shift our reality, our outer world.
Yeah. Yeah. I had very little fear for, for a few days you were fearful because you didn't understand what was going on. But immediately, as soon as you look within and you realize how powerful you are and that you have control over, if you have control over your own immune system, which you do, then there's no reason to fear. And, it's a program to be afraid of disease. So it sends many into this immediate program.
Well, one thing's for certain, you are a specialist. You have a greater knowledge and an understanding of your immune system and than most of us do. I had to learn fast. And most people are needing to learn very, very quickly. So I'm really grateful that you have a podcast which can share this kind of wisdom. And I think of those that don't have this information and this wisdom, and my heart and my prayers are with them, because learning how to transform when you have a ticking time bomb or when you have a compromised immune system and you have such an unknown like COVID or cancer or anything like this, it's huge. So we need to open up. We need to start listening to those that hold mastery in this, like homeopathy. I mean, all the medicines,
Mm-hmm.
all of them, all the medicines, you know?
I would definitely skew toward nature-based medicines because they do no harm, but that's true.
This has been my preference as well. Um, but I have also learned along the way that the that each one of us is different,
Mm.
and our path is unique. And the more that I can respect my own path's uniqueness, the more that I can see the uniqueness of another one's path.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
And that's important. To me, that's important. Because, you know, we were talking about paradox and that capacity to remain centered, to be centered and to see that that both sides bring with them a fulfillment of the whole. And so while I might not choose the same choice you would or another would, knowing that we have choice to me is really important. It's so important.
And that's why the fundamental question that is being asked of everyone right now is to keep that choice in your life over your own health, which would involve what you put in your body coming from a place of your decision, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Allowing is what I sit with. It's what I work on all the time. It's what I struggle with, to allow with what is in my life, to allow the fear that I live with for what we're going through, to not try to transform it, but also not to live from it, to allow it to to be next to me,
mm-hmm.
to allow other people their expression in their journey, um, to allow pain to come up the way that it's coming up, and to hold that space, to know that it too is essential and important. Um, Allowing to me is freedom. Allowing is love. And it's what I keep coming back to within myself as my own work. You know, allowing myself to fall apart,
Mm-hmm.
allowing myself to be afraid, allowing myself to not know, also allowing myself to be where I'm at. When I'm like this with myself, I can show up with greater awareness and compassion because we're all getting triggered.
Yeah. And we come into this world with this veil where we really can't see the future. We can't see where we came from. We're really blind here. So all you can do is what you're saying is go inside and you can only see the next step.
Yeah.
Fog of what this experience is.
You know, when I first got diagnosed, as I've said in previously on a previous podcast with you, cancer was not the issue. Everything in my life was imploding. I had no will to live. I actually I wanted a quick out. I wanted to find a way to commit suicide that would not bring pain to my loved ones because I didn't think that I had the strength. So that brought me to a woman, an Aboriginal healer in Australia where I was living, and she gave me, one sentence, and I've never forgotten it. She said, "You're dying, and you're dying fast. You can heal yourself, but you need to go back to the beginning. What you're going through now is not the beginning." And that just I thank God every day. I thank the goddess every day for that woman because that's all she needed to say to me, because I kept thinking, what is the beginning? Where is the beginning? I need to find it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was that seeking, that quest, that journey. The journeying became the destination. And cancer, while it loomed very present in every way, took a back seat. And somehow the healing began not in the physical body. That was the last place for me to feel healing. The healing began in my emotions. It began in my thoughts. It began in my ways that I looked at my life. And it spiraled and spiraled and spiraled until it came into my physical body. And I started to realize that things are never what they appear. So allow yourself to go in and to follow one step at a time, because it's not going to be shown to you. She couldn't tell me where the start was. I needed to find it. That's the journey. It's one step at a time. The heart is always leading you in a soft, quiet way, one step at a time, because you need to be present. Because in the present moment, you are open to the magic. You are open to the... You're not open when you're 10 steps ahead or when you're still in the past. You're not. You're not here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the unknown. That's meeting the unknown and building the courage up to keep meeting the unknown and being... We're all learning a lot about right now.
Yeah.
2020 is teaching us a lot about perception, isn't it? 2020 perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, that is the key to it all, like to live and be completely in the moment so you can see the next tiny step forward.
Mm-hmm.
Beautifully said. Danielle, there's something before we go, there's something that you said earlier that I just want to touch on, because I do feel you have a great understanding of it. And you said that, I can't say it perfectly, but you talked about how we are photons of light, or that we are light. And it's funny because I was listening to a medical doctor scientist who was talking about how everything is photons of light last night. And I just wanted you to talk about that, because it is so important.
Photons of light. It's very scientific.
You say it, yeah, and that's the way I just heard it, but you say it as...
Yeah. We are the light within ourselves. We are the love within ourselves. When I can look at myself and I can feel the weight of my experiences, when I can look at my illness and say, I am not my illness, I'm the love within. When I can look at the monumental flops in my life, as well as what was and what isn't, I'm not that either. I'm not my experiences. I'm not my job. I'm not my relationship. I'm the light within. I'm the love within. When I ask myself, who am I? When I really ask myself, who am I? The answer is never, oh, I'm cancer, or oh, I'm a healer. It isn't. When I look in with my heart and I ask, who am I in truth? I feel lightness. I feel freedom. I feel expansiveness. I feel that there is a deep knowingness within me that is drawing me to be in that place. And when I connect with it, and I'm going to invite you to do it right now with me, I want to invite you to connect to that deep place within you. An easy way to do it is to just close your eyes. And I want to invite you to bring into your mind's eye something or someone that you love so much. It can be a place. It can be a memory. It can be an animal. Doesn't matter. Just bring them into your mind's eye and breathe it in. Feel the love. Feel the love. It is a state, an energetic state. And on this next breath, I want you to breathe in and just let the memory go and just feel the love. Feel the energy. Feel the presence. And with your breath, breathe in and feel yourself connecting to this expanse. You can breathe. As you breathe in, just feel it growing through you. I am the love within. And as you exhale, know that you are sharing it. You're expressing it out into the world. When I'm in this place and I come back to this place, it's from this place I ask the questions, what do I need now? Show me the next step. May my thoughts, may the way that I need to answer the next question come from this place. May I walk in this energy. May this energy inside of me bless everything in my life. And may I draw from it the presence to respond to everything. The love is in me, for I am the love within. Each one of us holds the stories of our life. Each one of us holds pain. Each one of us holds fear. And we all hold light. We all hold this spaciousness. And we can choose. When we make choices out of fear, we create more fear. When we choose to focus on this spaciousness, this energy that fills us, that lightens us, we pull from it the power and the strength to create more love. We have everything inside us: fear, pain, love, light. Where we focus our attention is what we grow. This is a conscious way of living, moment by moment. I am the light within everything. And the light in you is in the light in me. Your breath is my breath. Your light is my light, and my love is your love. We are unique, diverse, and unified by our life and our light. Breathe into this space, and may we all breathe into this space and step forward. Step into a new way of living that is conscious, gentle, caring, allowing. nourishing.
Wow. Thank you, Danielle. That was everything that you've been speaking about in a nutshell, and just incredibly informative and powerful, and all about living through the heart. Danielle, I want to thank you and express my gratitude for having you here today. And I just want to tell everyone out there, don't give away your power to anyone else.
No, your power is beautiful. Your power is light. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Danielle. Beautiful.